In the NFL, there are some things you just assume are a given, right? Like death, taxes, and Bill Belichick walking straight into the Hall of Fame on his first try. I mean, the guy is pretty much the greatest coach of all time. But what if that wasn't a sure thing? What if the unthinkable actually happened? Just let that sink in for a second. Bill Belichick, 6 Super Bowls, a total shoo-in for a first ballot gold jacket. Except he wasn't. The architect of the entire Patriots dynasty, the coach with more Super Bowl rings than anyone in history, getting told, sorry, not this year. It sounds absolutely crazy, right? Well, it might just be a whole lot more possible than you think.
So you're probably asking the same thing I am. How? How on earth does the undisputed GOAT get left at the front door? Well, that's what we're going to get into. Let's pull back the curtain on the Hall of Fame's very private voting process, because that's where things start to get pretty interesting.
Okay, first things first, let's be really clear about how massive a deal a snub like this would be. We're not talking about some borderline candidate who maybe has to wait a year or two. No. This would be the coaching version of Michael Jordan being told to come back next year. It would be totally unprecedented and would demand a real serious explanation. And to really get why this is so shocking, you gotta understand what first ballot even means. It's the ultimate stamp of approval. It's the committee basically saying, your impact on the game was so huge, so undeniable, we don't even need to waste our breath debating it. You're in, right now. It's for the absolute titans of football, and, well, everyone just assumes Belichick is on that list. So to figure out how the impossible could become possible, we have to go behind the scenes. The result itself is baffling for sure, but the process, that's where the real story is. If we can understand how the vote works, we can start to see how it could all go sideways for a guy like Belichick. All right, so here's the path to getting that gold jacket. It's a 4-step deal. First, you've got this 50-person committee. Think media folks, Hall of Famers, you name it. Step 2, each of those people gets to vote for up to 3 of the finalists. Now, here's the big one, step 3. You need an 80% yes vote. That's a whopping 40 out of 50 people. And maybe the most important part, step 4, it is a completely secret ballot. Nobody knows who voted for who. There's zero transparency, which means zero accountability. So do the math. For Belichick or anyone, to get denied, all it takes is 11 people to leave him off their ballot. That's it. Just 11. It's not like you'd need some grand conspiracy. All it would take is a small but significant group of voters deciding, for whatever reason, that their votes are going somewhere else. So who are these 50 people holding the keys to Canton? And maybe more importantly, what can we figure out about how they might actually vote when the time comes? Let's try to break down this committee. Now, since the vote is a secret, we're kind of playing detective here. Let's just game this out. You could probably assume a good number of voters, say 21, would be vocal yes votes. But look at that. That still leaves 29 unknowns, a majority of the committee whose votes are a complete mystery. And those potential no votes, they're hiding somewhere in that group. And if you look a little closer at who's in these groups, you can see where a divide might happen. On one side, you've got your media members who are pretty open with their support. But in that unknown group, that's where you find some real heavy hitters. We're talking Hall of Famers themselves, guys like Tony Dungy, James Lofton, and Bill Polian. Their votes carry a ton of weight. And that is where all the intrigue lies. Okay, so we've covered the how, and we've got an idea of the who. Now it's time for the most fascinating part, the why. Why in the world would at least 11 people leave the greatest coach ever off their ballot? Well, a few compelling theories start to pop up. All right, let's look at the case file here. The possible motives are all over the place. You've got the obvious ones, right? Spygate, Deflategate, and that 2019 filming incident that cost the Patriots over $1 million. Some voters might just hold a grudge, but it could also be strategic. Maybe some voters use their limited votes on senior candidates who might not get another chance. Or maybe it's a protest vote against that new rule that made Belichick eligible so quickly in the first place. But among all these different theories, one name in particular just seems to highlight all the potential for drama. The former Colts GM and Hall of Fame voter, Bill Polian. And this right here perfectly illustrates the confusion around the whole process. Bill Polian told Sports Illustrated flat out, I definitely voted for Belichick. Okay, sounds clear. But then he told ESPN he was 95% sure I voted for him. Wait, what? 95% sure? This was only 2 weeks after the vote.
When one of the most powerful people in that room isn't even sure what he did, it shows you just how murky this all is. Ultimately, the possibility of a Belichick snub pulls back the curtain on something way bigger than just one coach. It really exposes a system that many feel is just, well, broken. It's secretive, it's totally unaccountable, and it's ripe for controversy. And I think this quote from CBS Sports insider Jonathan Jones just says it all. The entire system should be blown up. And you can see why he'd say that, right? When a process could produce a result this illogical, with absolutely no transparency to explain it, the calls to just scrap the whole thing and start over get a whole lot louder. So we're left with this really unsettling question. If Bill Belichick, the 6-time Super Bowl champion, isn't even a guaranteed first-ballot Hall of Famer, then who is? This whole scenario shows that the story isn't just about one coach's legacy, it's really about the credibility of the very institution that's supposed to define it.